4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Project Egg Show. I know it's your favorite show, but this is where you can come to get inspiration from entrepreneurs who are literally changing the world. Now, today, we have the honor of speaking with Nicole Holland, who works with innovators, disruptors, and thought leaders to increase their visibility, credibility, and profitability by leveraging podcasts and other new media marketing channels. She's been named in the Huffington Post as one of 50 must-follow women entrepreneurs in 2017, featured in multiple publications such as Forbes and Entrepreneur Magazine, where her podcast was recognized as one of the 48 best podcasts for entrepreneurs to listen to, and has been interviewed on over 100 trending podcasts, including your very favorite, which is this one, of course. Nicole is very passionate about helping kick-ass companies and brands finally get the recognition they truly deserve. And Nicole has done some other amazing things and has very impressive accolades that I could not possibly cover in this very brief introduction. So it is an absolute honor to introduce Nicole. How you doing today?
I am so good. I'm so excited to be here, Ben. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. So let's jump right in. No more dilly-dallying. Well, a little bit. What is your story?
My story. So there's so many, but right now, how I got to what I'm doing now, it's actually still in process. It's in progress. I think we all are always in progress. And there's some seasons that we are very aware of it, and there's some seasons that we are not aware of it, but progress is still happening. Right now, I'm very aware of it. I'm very intentional about it. And before we hit record, before we went live, we were talking a little bit about some new innovative software and technology that allows people like us to do some really cool stuff that's like in our brain, but we haven't had the clarity or the technology to pull it off. And now it's here. And so I am just super excited to really start leveraging more of that, both for myself as well as for clients, to get them in front of more of their ideal buyers, because my people change the world. I work with world changers. I work with people who have, like, even if they have, let's say they sell, I can't even think right now because I'm not working with product yet, but I'm about to. But let's say they're a SaaS company, right? So that's what a lot of my clients do, is they have a software as a service that solves a problem. And you might think, well, that's just it's just a physical or something about like marketing, let's say. So it's just something that helps with that. But how does that change the world? Oh my gosh, so many ways. And the thing is, anything can change the world if that's your intention for it. And those are the kind of people I work with. And so to have this technology now and more coming, I'm actually going to the largest innovation conference in North America in about 2 weeks. Is it the 20th? Called Collision from Web Summit. And it's just like, I'm so stoked and excited to learn everything. So my story is, essentially, I'm just like everybody else. Everybody is watching. I'm like you. You're like me. I just started noticing things around me that I wanted to fix or change. I thought that they could be better. Things like customer service, like customer experience, the experience even as a guest on a podcast, the experience of a podcaster. So these are things that are just, I experience and I see all the time. And I go, how could this be more fun or easier or more impactful? And that's my story. That's how I do what I do. That's why I do what I do. And does that answer the story question?
Yeah. And now I want to drill down like a whole heck of a lot. So how did you first get into the entrepreneurial space, and what did you do?
So I first got into the entrepreneurial space back in the early 80s, I guess. So I was just a very young child, and there wasn't really an entrepreneurial space, right? There were business owners and there were normal people, and you were, normal people, you could be whatever, but entrepreneurship was not a word I ever knew. I knew that I really loved giving people what they wanted. And if I could make that connection, oh, so much fun. And I was so happy to. So I guess a lot of just by beingness, just like in my childhood, I was always that person who tried to connect something that somebody needed or wanted with something that was what they wanted or needed, or people or whatever. So I always made those connections. And the first time I made money from it that I can think of in any significant way was, I was very young, but my father, he loved gardening. Loved it. And so our entire backyard, our entire side yard was covered in fruit trees. I mean, not gardening just to look at pretty things, like eat. We lived off of our land, a very small land in the suburbs of Baltimore, but we lived off the land essentially. And then my dad also had garden plots. So he loved it. And so we always had lots and lots and lots of food, more than enough for our family, more than enough for the neighbors. He was always giving it, taking it to work, stuff like that. So we would have more, and my father would help, showed us how we can bag up the food and put like 50 cents or 25 cents or whatever, and sit up at the pool in the evenings and sell that. And I thought it was the coolest thing, like families would come in and the parents would place their orders and have me put it aside so they could pick it up when they leave, and I just thought that was the neatest thing. So that would be and I always did things like, mother's helper, or, you need your yard cleaned or whatever. So I always had those things I like to do. But I would say Red Wagon Produce was the first organized understanding of, if I give them this thing they want, they give me this thing I want, which is money.
So you start this Red Wagon Produce empire, and
the empire, yes.
You're changing the world one fruit at a time. And from there, where did you go? I mean, what was your experience like growing up in school and with your family, and who were you back then? I know I just asked a lot of questions all at once, but
it's all the same though, right? So I will start with who was I back then. Who was I back then? Who I was back then is who I am today. And who I was born to be. And that's something that's taken me a long time to figure out. And throughout life, I have felt many times, which I'm guessing you have. You're still quite young, but I believe everybody who's watching this, you felt times, and even as kids, we feel times where it's like, you're like inside kind of going, this is not what I want. I have to do it to get by, right? Whether it's a job or it's a relationship, or we suck things in and don't honor our inner feeling. We honor society and the rules, and typically. So that was my experience. I am a rule follower, even though people think, oh, you're such a rebel because you've got purple hair, and like, I do the right thing. I always did the right thing to the best of my understanding of what it was. So integrity is really important to me. But growing up, I was not in the most nurturing situation. So my parents, I feel, were, in hindsight, now as an adult, really just, they were ill prepared to be parents. And so there was a lot of neglect. There was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of anger and hurt. And I didn't like it. I didn't want to be around it. And it was not fun. And so, I didn't do well in school. I didn't understand a lot of things. Looking back, I mean, if I were like tested, I probably would have had some cognitive impairment for learning. I don't know. I've never been tested because, frankly, I don't care. But with that, and with the circumstances, as we all do, I adapted and I was able to get by. One thing that happened significantly when I was 16, just after I turned 16, or not long after, was something happened in the household that was absolutely not okay. And I already had figured out how I can get out of there with a blessing, without running away, without doing the wrong thing, right? But how I could move on and move out of a situation I didn't want to be in at such an early age. And there came a time where I got to articulate that plan. And so, you know what? I'll just say it. I've never said this before. Now, like, I'm on live. I've never said this publicly before, but I love my father. I love my parents and everything like that. And we all do the best we can with what we have. But the particular event that led to me getting emancipated and leaving home was my father. I don't know where his mindset was, but he was not a happy person at the time. And my brother and I were watching TV and kind of arguing. And I was sitting on the floor, and I don't know, he had a moment, and I didn't shut up or whatever I was supposed to do. So I saw a hand coming down at my face, towards my face, and I covered my face and turned. And so he broke my fingers, a couple of them. So with that, I was able to say, okay, so here's the situation as I was going to urgent care with my mother. Either you can let me go on this, you let me go. And I was just moving furniture and it fell over. I had a bookshelf fall over, and that's what happened to my hand. Or you want me to stay and I want to go. So I will tell them exactly what happened. So I think we're far enough. We're way over 2 decades. So like 3 decades. So I'm assuming that there is nothing that can be done now. But at the time I saw that as, okay, I know that the situation is not good. I don't want to be in the situation. How can I get out of the situation while still adhering to the rules? And that's how I got out of the situation. And so, this is very personal. It might be something that we don't really talk much about. But I think it demonstrates that that's always who I've been. I like to figure, not that I like to, but I do. Actually, I like to. But I was always conditioned to figure out how to manage my circumstances and get what I wanted from an unwanted experience or any experience that I have. So yeah, that was a couple of answers to a couple questions. I'm not sure that I got all of them, but I will turn it over to you, sir.
Well, I appreciate your courage in sharing that. And I'm honored that you decided to share that with me. So thank you.
Thank you. And all of our listeners around the world.
Absolutely. What was the plan that at that moment of crisis, you finally got to articulate, but what was that specific plan?
Yeah. So the plan, as most do, especially with business, or, very clear plans, it didn't work out the way I had envisioned. So I thought, okay, I'm going to get emancipated. I'm going to move to Montreal, where I always loved. They have wonderful culture and jazz and art. And I just thought, oh, what an amazing place. Montreal. It was like my plan, my dream. And when I get out of here, I'm going to go there. And I had even been looking at colleges because they have a different, or at least at the time, I don't know now, but they had a different schooling situation where they had a high school that you could leave either after grade 13, or no, that was an Ontario thing, I think. They had a high school that you could leave at a certain point when you graduate, or you could do like an early thing where then you go to something called cégep, and you were either on track to do a technical, like I have a technical learning and experience to do a job, or you could go academic route. And so I always wanted to be, as a kid, I always wanted to be I don't even know if performer is the right word, or entertainer, but I wanted to be an actress. I always wanted to be an actress. And so they had an amazing acting program, or theater arts program. And so that was my plan. I always thought, I'm going to get out of here. I don't know how, but I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to go to Dawson College in Montreal. That was since I was 15 years old, that was my plan. I was 16. I wound up getting out of the house. However, my mother negotiated with me to not go all the way to Montreal, but to stay in Maryland, where I was like, I don't know, where I was closer to home, which whatever. So that's what I did. I wound up moving into a rooming house that was owned by a relative who was a senior, and she rented out rooms at the University of Maryland. And so I lived there for a little bit, and I was going to high school. And I think it was in the third quarter. Yeah. So I was being bused down to like high school quite a ways away. And I think it was in third quarter that I had an experience with one of the students that apparently I had disrespected. So we had this, I see you keep, I don't know if this will, it doesn't matter, but I keep seeing your cup and you've got like Star of David. And yeah, okay. So you've got the Star of David. Well, we had, I had my theater teacher was, my drama teacher was also my English teacher. And I had her 2 periods before and after lunch. And she wore a Star of David, and she was very fair skinned and very, like, very soft spoken and short and young. I think she was like 23 at the time. And she had come out of Syracuse, and she, you know, she's working in a sort of inner city, really rough school, which I also was not used to, not where I came from, but that's where I was going as I moved out on my own and was living in a different place. And so the people there, the students, were very rough on her, and I didn't like that. And I kind of came to a breaking point where I turned around and said something to the guy behind me who was making her cry at the moment, that he was very ignorant. And I used that word. I remember, you're so ignorant. And then the whole room kind of went, ooh. And so then he made it a point to make my life miserable, like following me around, big guy, shoving me into lockers, just crazy, silly stuff. But when he showed up in College Park, which was a good 30 minutes from the school, right down the street from where I lived, and was walking behind me. And this is before the internet, guys. So I don't even know how this happened. But when I heard something and I felt something behind me, like pushed me, and then he walked around and put a gun to my head and said, "You ever disrespect me again, I'm going to kill you." That was enough for me to go, high school's really not that important. And I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And so at that point, then I exited. I dropped out of high school in grade 11 and moved to Montreal. So yeah, so school was never really my thing. I love being educated. I love learning. And I find that I'm a very quick learner when it comes to things I'm interested in. But to learn just for the sake of learning doesn't really do anything for me. And so I think that's one of the things that as entrepreneurs, we really get to play with and have fun with, is that whatever you want, whatever your mind can conceive, you can achieve, right? And you can go figure out, how do I get this done? How do I get that done? Ooh, I want to be this person to this cause, or I want to do this thing to have this other thing happen, or whatever it is. And we live in this incredible world now with the internet and free information. There's so many different people and companies doing things to make free information, free education even more broad. In fact, I've just brought on an apprentice through a program that it's democratizing education. And so they have this program where students don't have to pay anything. They just come learn, and then they can receive an apprenticeship placement. There's no charge for them. And as entrepreneurs, we pay a very, very nominal fee, and we get to match up with people who want to learn what we have learned and what we are doing and help us. And so, like, I love that we're now in this world where anything you want is so easy and readily available. And I guess to bring it all back to the question, my whole life, I was this person who I am. And based on circumstances, I didn't allow myself to be me. And it's one of the hardest things, I think, for for entrepreneurs, for any of us really to do is when we have to look at branding, for example, we have to look at how do we get our message out? What is it specifically we need to say? What is it we need to, what's the anchor, right? Like, for example, for me, I was open to like coaching, marketing, life. Those are the things. I've been a life coach for a long time. But it's the whole life, right? It's your whole life that you have experience with. And it was an uphill battle. It was really an uphill battle to get clients because the words, I couldn't create that clear messaging. I struggled with that. And I still struggle with that. Even though I know all the stuff and I go to amazing, amazing people to help me with that, there's still a lot of block there. So I think that comes from our upbringing. Good, bad, and different doesn't matter, but it's what we're conditioned over our lifetime to learn how to navigate our circumstances. And for a long time in my life, navigating my circumstances meant I like things calm. I like things quiet. I don't like fighting. I don't like yelling. I am very much like that triggers me. So for me, it was always how can I keep things calm and not confrontational, and I want to follow the rules, because if I don't follow the rules, then there's a problem. And so these are the stories that and the different things that we train ourselves around throughout life. And so now after 40, I'm like, I don't care about the rules. No, I'm just kidding. But it has been for me now. I'm able to speak whatever I want to speak about. This was not planned. I was not planning on sharing the details of that day. I've never shared the details of that day. I love my father, and I have talked about my childhood from time to time, but I've never actually told anybody, other than a few people in my life who know, about that thing that happened, about when he went to hit me and he broke my hand. That was my ticket out. And that's kind of always how I looked at it too. That, like you said, was the plan. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew I had to get out of that household. So that was how.
So first of all, you've definitely been through some shit. I will say that. And
we all have, though, Ben. We all have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I definitely can say from personal experience that I've never had a gun pointed at me.
Good.
And I feel like that definitely has the ability to shift or alter your perspective. And one thing I wanted to comment on about understanding like who you are, that's one of the roots of what you were talking about. I think that it can be confusing at times because, and this is a theory of mine that I've developed over years of introspection and a lot of journaling and meditation and talking to spiritual teachers and people who are very emotionally intelligent and people vastly more experienced than myself. So this is a synthesis of that information plus my own journey that I've come up with this idea that I believe at our core, we have ourselves. Like we are at our core. So that's one slice of the pie. Then there is another slice of the external influences of other people. So that ignorant guy who pointed the gun at you, like that was clearly it's been influential in your life. That had an impact on you, and it may be hard to quantify exactly what that looks like, but there is some influence, right? So that is there inside as well, right? Mm-hmm. Then there's going to be the intersection of those things where those emotions, feelings, thoughts, memories will come together and form that third slice, right? And then you're constantly going forward in your life. So that's just sprinkling more on top of all of that. So after all of those pieces of the pie, how the hell are you supposed to know what's actually you, right? Yeah. That, to me, is why really understanding who you are at your core is so difficult. And it's not difficult in like a trying to solve a math problem type of way. I believe it's difficult because it takes a lot of work. and it takes a lot of intentionality, and it takes a lot of asking yourself really hard questions that could be very, very uncomfortable. And that is that's my take on that part.
That's brilliant.
So let's talk about what happened once you moved to Montreal.
Oh, life happened. Again, it's a series of situations. So from a standpoint of it's like, and I just want to fast forward just to let you know that before I started working online and in this space, I was a correctional officer. I was a crisis support worker. I was a youth counselor. I was a foster parent, so I had a lot of time working with kids in crisis. And the ones I loved working with the most were the tough ones that had something. They weren't going to let things get them down. They were going to keep going. They were going to keep thriving, because that's who I am. I'm at the core someone who will not give up and wants to enjoy my life. Like, love is the ultimate, and joy is the ultimate thing I'm looking for. Everybody measures success differently, but for me, there's no number that I can put on what I consider, oh, that's success. Once I get there, it's no. Every single day, if I can just be in appreciation and awareness, I think that's the biggest thing, is that we need to be self-aware and willing to really not just from as much as possible detached space. So we're not praising ourselves, we're not criticizing ourselves, but we're observing ourselves and identifying, this is something that I created because I was in this mindset or this flow state, or this is something, these challenges that are coming, what's that trying to signal to me? What's that trying to teach me? And I think because I externally had the experiences that most kids never experience, God willing. Far, far too many do, but most kids never do. I was able to use my experiences, I guess, without understanding and recognizing at that time, because Stuart putting a gun in my back and then in my face, it impacted me, and my awareness of how it impacted me was in the moment how I felt. And there was anger and there was fear, but I wasn't going to let anybody see it, right? Because I had to be tough and I was living on my own. And, I think at the time, was I 17 already then? I think I had turned 17. Yeah, because that was further along in the year. But I wasn't prepared for that. I just had to, I responded and reacted based on whatever I, was inside of me to deal with that situation. And I was able to not be what I thought he wanted outwardly. I was able not to show fear. I was able to stand up and walk away and use some language to express that he is not going to intimidate me, and I will not stand up for other people. So he can do what, I think I even said something like that. I don't remember the words because I was in fight or flight mode. But I think I left him with some words about, you do what you need to do. I can't worry about you. And I walked off. And so, sorry, I kind of got on a tangent there, but there was a point to that, to bring it up to the now. Can you remember your question?
Yeah, so we covered it a little bit, and I want to keep the narrative going. Let's talk about when you really started. You moved
to Montreal.
You moved to Montreal, and then you were working and doing those various other things.
Yes.
Let's talk about when your business really started. Let's move into the full-fledged entrepreneurship mode.
Awesome. Can I just bring it real quick from the Stuart thing? Got out to Montreal, and then my plan didn't work because I had a plan of what to do, how it was going to look, how it was going to feel. I had it all in my mind. And none of it happened, but I got what I wanted, right? I got out. I got to the situation that I didn't want. So I got out of that situation and I went to Montreal, and I couldn't speak French, and I couldn't get into school. That's what I wanted. They're like, you can't just come here. Like they needed to transfer me or whatever, and residency and all this. So I did things too fast without understanding the process that needed to happen in order for me to achieve my goal of going to Dawson College in the theater arts program. So I had to adapt and work and all of the things. And so, my entrepreneurial journey has been so much of that same pattern over and over, where, I did, God, I did so many little things, and I would change jobs. And when I was in Montreal, I couldn't speak French. So I wound up working at McDonald's, and up there at that time we had pizza. And so I was making the pizza and making the salads, that was how, and then I worked in nightclubs and I was bartending. And I worked, oh no. And prior to that, when I was a kid, I had worked for a club. We had, health club, sports club, fitness club. And so what I realized when I was in Montreal and I had done all of the things, it was like, I don't want this. I don't want to be 30 like a lot of these bartenders and standing behind a bar. This is fun right now at 18. But it wasn't what I wanted to be doing with my life. And so I wound up connecting with somebody who had mentored me and asked him, is there anything that anywhere you think I should go, anything? And I had already been studying guerrilla marketing at that time when I worked for him when I was in high school. And so he connected with me with a friend of his that was looking for an intern or an apprentice. So I moved back down to Maryland to go and do that project. And then the NBA, it was for the NBA. So the NBA went on strike. And so that couldn't happen. So then I was looking the next thing. So most of my life, I was looking for jobs because I believed I needed a job. I didn't believe that I could create something on my own. Now, when we did Red Wagon and when I lived at home, the circumstances were different, right? So my father was the one that came up with the idea for Red Wagon Produce. My father was the lead, and I was following. And so this was kind of what I knew to be true always. So eventually, I guess my first real, I was about to do air quotes, my first real business came about because after a series of me just going, this doesn't feel good. I want something better. And then getting something better and saying, okay, I'm done with that. It doesn't feel good. Now I want something better, because we're always wanting. Led me to, I was in Germany. I was married. My ex-husband was in the military. And when our marriage didn't work out, I left, but then I came back to travel. And my cousin knew somebody that worked in a place that they needed native English speakers to teach for business communication to executives, teach English. And I'm going, I've never taught. I'm a high school dropout. I don't even have it, at the time. Oh, I had a GED, but I'm like, how can I teach? I can't teach. And they're like, they don't care as long as you can speak it and you can do it. They're open to interviewing. So I'm like, whatever. So I had, my backpack that I was planning on traveling around the world for a year, and I had some cargo pants and a sweater. And I went to this interview, and they gave me an assignment. They liked me at the interview. They gave me an assignment to create a class for one of their employees. That was like, the test subject. And all they told me was, we want you to do a 20-minute lesson on telephoning. Like, what does that mean? I don't even know what you're talking about. Telephoning. So she's German. She needs to call the States. She needs to be able to interact in English with her partners. She doesn't speak English. And the English that she does speak, it comes off, because of cultural differences, as if she's disinterested or could be rude, something like this. So we need you to do a lesson to teach her about how to use the telephone for international communication. Okay. So I went home. I was like, what do I need to do with that? Again, no internet at the time. So, I called around. I started asking questions to people. I started asking myself, and I started thinking about, if I were to need to learn how to do this, what would I need to know first and then second? And so it came very natural to me, because all these times and all this stuff I've been telling you before is exactly the same stuff. Here's the problem. How do we get the solution? Here's the solution we want. Here's the problem in the way. How do we get that and overcome this? And then what I found, it's the exact same thing, right? How to teach something. So even though I didn't have an education in this, even though I didn't have a degree, or I just went, all right. And so I went in totally not expecting anything. And I was invited to start teaching the next week. So they are like, here is, here's the contract. Here's this opportunity. Do you want it or not? And I went, wait a minute. And I don't even know what the conversion would be, but at the time it was $45 per, it was $45? No, $30 or something like that. Not dollars, DMOC. But let's say $40, $30 for a 45-minute or 40-minute training session. Gosh, it's been so long. But basically I went, what? That's a lot of money just to go teach somebody how to do something that I already know how to do. And like the fraud and the imposter syndrome definitely kicked in. But I asked, I was like, what? And they said, yes, go ahead. We'll give you this one contract, see how it goes. So I went. I loved it. And it was just interacting with a bunch of people and helping them understand how to get their needs met. So that kept going. And I wound up getting divorced. So I lost my status there. So I had to get the sponsored. And then that happened for a while. And then I was offered a freelance position working with a very large company and not going through a school or an agency or a company that's contracting out. And so I worked directly with the company, and I designed their program and implemented it, and they wanted more. So then I started designing more programs and finding trainers and teaching them. And then they wanted more, and it became a business. So it wasn't that I ever had the idea, I want to go out, and I'm in awe and I'm inspired every day when I listen to my friends and others who talk about the business. And I used to hear this and think, oh my gosh, this is so over my head. But now I'm like, that's amazing. Like things that are just come so naturally. So it was never intentional. And a lot of people, they build a business because they have to build a business. That happened for me because I just needed to do something and make money, and it just came very natural. And so over the years, I got back into working jobs after I stopped that business, and I came back to North America. And the jobs evolved to where I felt so attached and I needed to be in a job. I forgot that I can create whatever I want. So eventually I quit my job as a correctional officer because I didn't want to be surrounded. I didn't want to be in that environment. It didn't feel good to me. And so I decided I needed to do something that did feel good to me. And I didn't know what it was going to be, but I quit and I thought, I'm going to figure it out. I'm a coach. I've got lots of skills. Let's see how this internet thing works. So and that brings us to now. It's just been a continuous evolution of what feels good. How am I helping people? How am I serving people? When people have like breakthroughs or their life changes, right? I worked mostly with solopreneurs or, single individual entrepreneurs starting out, or maybe there would be a small team. And now I'm working with larger businesses, but it was just it's so rewarding when I can see firsthand how people understanding fundamentally how to get their goals met with all the obstacles in the way. That's really what lights me up the most.
Let's talk about how you really broke into the online space. And I want to hear the story of your summit or multiple summits. I don't know. I don't know if you want to how you want to classify it, but it happened for multiple years. But I want to hear your story. So let's talk about breaking into the online scene, making it big, being awesome, and the summit thing. Let's tap into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the summit thing is what got me on the map. So I quit my job and I didn't have an income. I didn't plan to quit I planned without planning. So I had committed to myself that I wouldn't spend another turn of the year as an officer. And at first I was trying and looking for other options. But then, I get sick or life happens. And I was very sick at that time. I was struggling. And I mean, step back, hindsight and all that, I can see that I was just so misaligned. I was so off track. I wasn't able to be me. And I feel like that's what manifests. And when I'm doing things that I love, when I'm doing things and being in a space that just feels so good, I'm healthy, I'm happy, everything is great. And when not, then that's when things start falling apart. And they were falling apart slowly over years to where I didn't realize how far off my path I was becoming. And so when I quit my job and had to figure out this online space, I was super sick. I was being tested all the time. I couldn't walk sometimes. I couldn't breathe sometimes. Finally, in May, I was started to get treatment that year in May for lupus. And so once I started taking the meds, I started getting better so I could breathe, right? Or I could walk, I could cut vegetables, things like that. So what I knew when I quit my job was that I have to figure out a way to make money to pay my bills and to live that doesn't require me to be anywhere other than where I want to be, which at the time was my home, because I was safe there. I didn't have to worry about trying to navigate situations feeling so low. So for me, it was important to figure out, how do I make money from home doing something that uses my skills? And so I dove in to the internet and I started Googling, how do I do this? And so I started getting a lot of information. Now, I will also say that just before I quit my job, somehow I came across somebody. I've never been a pop culture person. As a correctional officer, I didn't associate with people. I didn't even watch TV. It's like I used to enjoy crime shows and stuff. And now it's like, I don't want to see any of that. I was dealing with a real thing for a while. So I didn't really know what was out there. And somehow I got on this list, like, a list? What is that? I didn't know that. I just, oh, wow, I'm getting this email. This is so awesome. Because I knew nothing about the online space. So I got this email from somebody who said, hey, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be on this summit and blah, blah, blah. Superhero summit for authors, speakers, coaches. Well, I had been a coach for a long time. I had already been certified as a coach years before, right? And so I went, what is this? What is this? Let me check it out. And it was on Google Hangouts, was when that was still new. He had Google Hangouts on air, and Marisa Murgatroyd, she was really a pioneer in the space of summits. And she had everybody turned into a superhero, and it was live, and it was awesome. Then you could watch the recording for a little bit. And I think it happened for 2 weeks, Monday to Friday. So I was like, all of the speakers, that it was just one a day. If I remember correctly, I think it was one a day. Anyways, it was very organized. It was well organized. So you knew the schedule. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to anything that could benefit me to get a coaching practice up and going using the computer. And so I went to all the sessions, and I bought the package to buy the recordings, and I went back through the recordings. They were awesome. And each one of the speakers offered a program so funny because I'm saying this and it's like I have a whole different understanding now of anything that was my understanding then. But these programs, everybody had a program to help you do this one thing. And so I bought them all. I was like, this is amazing. And one of the people wasn't buying a program, it was attending their live event. You got a free ticket to their live event. And so I decided I'm doing it. And I flew out to California, and then Marissa's event also. I flew down for that. It was the most weird thing for me ever. And I said, yes, 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 because that's what the marketing is designed to do. And so I bought all these programs and I paid I paid 5 figures for one program that I thought was going to be one thing because of what they had said. And I didn't experience it that way. And I realized that the people who were in that group with me that I was connecting with were also not experiencing what they thought they were going to experience. And so I started realizing that, and I would be told, Nicole, because I was doing it, I'm like, I'm going to pay you and I'm going to do it. Just tell me what to do. And I'm going to follow through and I'm going to get those results. Right. And all the things. And I kept being told by one strategist who was, now I know, just somebody they pay a few bucks to make everybody feel really important, but they didn't make me feel important. They made me feel invalidated. And so she would say to me, oh, because I had this vision for an agency, and she'd say, oh yeah, you can't do that. And finally it came up, she didn't know the first thing about an agency, and it wasn't a part of what the people that they attract actually do. So rather than just going, hey, you know what, Nicole, this is not going to be a right fit. And we wanted you to succeed. And it's more important that you succeed than that we keep you here because we're going to keep you back. That's what should have happened. That's what I believe now. But it didn't. And so I just kept being told, well, you're not using the scripts properly. You shouldn't just talk about what you feel. Read the script, memorize the script, do this thing. And so this was completely out of alignment for me, but I didn't know how to say, this is out of alignment for me. I just knew I was trying the best I could. I had spent all this money that I didn't have, and I was committed to being successful at it. I was committed. And so it was a very challenging and strange time. And like I said, I had heard from all these other people I started seeing, they're not doing anything that, helps. They're not spending any individual time, even though it was, a very big amount of money. And I thought, this is not okay. So I quit, and it was a bit challenging to quit. But in the end, I quit. And then I spoke a lot about it, and I would say, I'm so angry about this. I'm so angry because people shouldn't be preyed upon. That's how I felt. I thought, I don't know. I'm seeking advice. I'm seeking direction, right? I hear about this thing called a webinar, and I think that's great. So I'm looking into webinars, and everybody tells me you have to have this. If you don't have this, you're going to fail. If you don't do this, you're going to fail. And so that was the marketing that I was getting. And I wasn't able to separate, not having any idea what this thing was, but trying to find out, trying to learn. Then I could make an educated decision. But I couldn't get to that information until I would pay. I would pay. And I saw this as a systemic problem. And I said, I'm done. I'm going to do something about it. I don't care right now how to get coaching clients. All I care about is that this shit stops. It disgusts me. So it was about that I just started talking with people that I had met and had interacted with over the internet and that were helpful to me. And I would just say, hey, what do you think about this idea? So I was inspired by Marissa. I wasn't going to copy her, but I was definitely inspired by her. And I thought this is the coolest thing, to bring people together to learn in one place virtually, and it's free and it's like no barrier to entry. And I thought, I want to create that for other people who are like me and all the other people who want to start an online business. where I give them a little taste of all the different options and they get tangible, real things that they can implement. Then they can decide if they want to move forward with that speaker, with that person presenting. And so I had a lot of really positive feedback from the handful of people I asked. And I said, well, would you do that? Can you, Roger, do webinars for me? Can you teach about how to use webinars to find clients? And, AJ, can you teach about how to use Twitter to find clients? And, Amber, can you teach about how to build a WordPress site to get clients? And can you do so I just started finding these people who I thought were so cool and so good at what they did and just good people that didn't have this kind of slimy, come on in so that I can take your money and that's it. And so I started being just more aware of that. And so I started pushing and I had so much support, so much love. It was amazing. And I decided I was going to do it for a month, November 1st. And every day there was going to be one speaker. You could hear the recording for 24 hours. And then it would be available to purchase for a nominal fee. And it was amazing. And the whole premise was, and I only wanted one speaker per topic because I was tired of being told, like I said, even with the webinar stuff, like webinar software and stuff, it's like, I am sitting there trying to learn about it. Is this something for me is the question. It's not like, it's all beyond that. But my questioning was, is this something for me? Is this something that's going to help me or not? Is this an option? And I just kept being told, you have to have this. No, yes, you need this. If you don't have this, do you know, I have like 5 webinar platforms. Most of them ever, like forever, right? And I don't use them. I use Zoom. I pay for Zoom because it works for me. But that was where I was at. And I thought, I want to stamp this out. Nobody should go through this. So I created the summit. And it was a huge success. And it got me a lot of attention. And it changed people's lives. That's what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for it to get me attention necessarily. It wasn't about me. It was about, I want to learn these things. I think these people are smart. And I want others to learn these things with me if they're interested. So it was a great success. And I built great relationships on both the audience and the speaker side. And there was one person I interviewed about podcasts. And his name was John Lee. His name is, not was. His name is John Lee Dumas. And after the interview, he said, Nicole, you're really good at this. You should think about having a podcast. And I went, yeah. I can't do a podcast right now. And then I was like, because I was in it. I was in the middle of the summit. I was busy. And then after the summit, I go, so this guy knows a heck of a lot more than I do. And he's doing very well. And what he had to say when I interviewed him was very useful. So let me dig a little deeper and look into this. And I did. I wound up buying his program. I wound up building a podcast. I kept the same name, the Business Building Rockstar Show. And then that evolved. It's just been evolving. And so, 3 years, we did the summit for 3 years annually. And my business is really it's not in the same place, and I'm not working with the same people. So it was a bit of a challenge to keep doing the summit while I was actually, my business was growing quite well in a done for you service model where I was getting people out on podcasts and helping them launch their own podcast. But it was a high level, high touch, one-to-one, high ticket service that I didn't see how can I bring these people who are fans of the summit over to this offering? Like, how can I do that? I didn't see that connection. So I just severed everything. And now it's just funny timing that we're talking, because I've just kind of gone through another situation where it's very reminiscent of the days where I said, enough, this is not okay. People are getting duped, for lack of a better word, pardon the no noise. And I own that my role, and I own that I put myself in that situation, and that's fine. That's over. But what I can't own is that so many people are having the same experience. And because they're at this different level, higher level, whatever you want to call it, and higher price point, and it's intermixed in communities that already exist where you feel like you can trust others, it's still being done. So nobody talks about it. So right now, as we're recording this on May 9th of 2019, that's a project that I'm working on right now, which I won't say it's going to be a summit. I won't say it's going to be a podcast. I won't say what it is, but because honestly, I just don't know yet. It hasn't come to that evolution, but I've been speaking with a lot of others who are ready to, quote, break the silence and talk about their experience that has given them the feelings of not trusting others, or the feelings of, so it's like holding them back from moving forward in their business and moving forward in their life because of these experiences. Some feeling like, oh, I'm going to be blacklisted if I say anything, and so it's just kind of full circle that in 2015, I took a stand against something that it's the same thing, just in a different way now in 2019 and 2020.
So clearly, that's an amazing story. And a lot of things happened in a very short amount of time. And it would probably take us a couple of weeks to really unpack all of that. So I want to ask you a question. Big surprise there, right?
Anything you want.
I want to know what your philosophy is on building deep, meaningful, and genuine connections with other people.
What my philosophy is? Well, it's the core thing in me, and it's something that I think is a benefit. Benefits, like such a soft word. I wish I could find a stronger word for that. It's such a value to me, and it serves me and serves others well at many times when there's alignment, when it's a good match. And it also is my Achilles heel because I care so much about the depth of relationship. It's not that I expect I'm going to meet somebody and like all of a sudden we're going to be married. Not like that. But I want to continue conversations over time, over space, with people who are like-minded and of the same kind of level of interest, if you will, in things that I'm interested in. I'm just at a point in my life where I'm not really keen on spending time or space and engaging with people who don't have the same mindset and don't have the same values. And so that's something I'll give a shout out to Ron Lynch of Big Baby Agency. He's just so amazing. And we've just had a couple of conversations in the last little while about this. And he takes such a great stand for being able to not only decide and only do things with people who he loves, but also to tell them. And this was something we talked about just the other day, where he was with somebody, getting to know them, and he realized over the course of their interaction that it was not a fit. He was not somebody, it's not that he was a bad person, but he was not in the place that Ron had any interest in spending time or energy or space. And so he told him and basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, so please don't, I'm not quoting Ron, but something to the effect of, this is great. You're great. And I think you should look for a mentor who is interested in these things, or a mentor, who's interested in this, even though you're not interested in this, because I think it'll help you. We're not going to be, I'll be friendly to you, but we're not going to be spending time together. And that's where I want to get to. It's like a next step for me, not to be rude, but I think it's really a service to somebody else. if you are able to tell them in a very clean way, it's not a fit. I think it's a disservice to yourself and to others to keep something going. And I've been really recognizing that and kind of cleaning out my friends list in Facebook and just doing an internal assessment of, is this somebody who I'm just keeping in touch with because we've been in touch before? Like, is this somebody who, who is adding value to my life, or who I would like to have add value to my life? Am I adding value to theirs? And if I'm not just a definite like, oh yes, then I'm going through the process of just kind of testing and removing. So the ones that aren't, it's like, okay, blessings, and I am going to detach from that connection, be it their number in my phone or a friend on the Facebook or whatever. Not because I'm better than, or not because I think anything poor about them. I just recognize we are not a fit for alignment. So why keep holding on to connections that are not there or that should not be there? And then for ones that I'm not sure about, and I'm like, wow, I really like this person. I really felt a connection with them, but we haven't had any further interactions. I'm not sure if they're interested. So I'll just reach out, say, hey, see if we can get on a call, something like that. And then their reaction is very telling. And I check in and say, okay, is this effortful or effortless? Does this feel good to connect with this person and give up time, share time with them? Or is it kind of like, I don't really want to do it? And so that's been helping me lately decipher who to keep in and who to keep out. So to answer your question, I think that having authentic, true, deep connections is so extremely important. And we won't have that with everybody. And I'm kind of at a point in my life where I can do friendly, superficial, professional. That's all good. But I need to be aware of not spending my time and energy with folks like that, and devoting more time and energy to folks who are really just so meaningful and just wonderful to be with.
I very much struggle with small talk because it's just frustrating to me. Like it is literally like the bane of my existence, because I crave depth and meaning in conversation, because like I probably spend 10 to 15 hours a day working on my business, and the very small portion of time outside of that, like, why would I want to waste it talking about stuff that doesn't matter? Like, I really don't give a shit about the weather. I really don't. Like, I don't care. I could walk outside and I'll know. Like, I got it. I want to know about people. I want to know about your life. I want to know about what you think. I want to know about your philosophy. I want to understand how the inner mechanics of your mind, like, how does that work? Like, what do you stand for? What are you doing with your life? That's what I care about. And I'm not sure if that's a limiting belief of maybe small talk can then lead to more meaningful conversation or not, but it just frustrates me to the point of like, if there's a group of people who are engaging in that, I almost feel awkward. I almost feel like a little socially awkward. Like, I don't know really like how to approach this group, because I just feel like I almost don't really have anything to say, because I don't want to engage on that level. It's the oddest thing. And I've been really experiencing that a lot lately. And it's like, okay, I guess that's.
I've definitely experienced that as well. Absolutely. And there's actually a lot of people that experience that. It's just a matter of finding them and them finding you. And again, it goes back to alignment, I think. And it is uncomfortable. Like I find even now, even though I'm more aware, I still feel like I was at a conference in San Diego a couple months ago, and it's like huge. And there's all these people there who are amazing and lots of fun stuff and lots of just brilliant people. And that's all I wanted, was just to spend time with brilliant people. I didn't go for content or anything like that. I'm kind of contented out. I feel like if there's something I want to learn, I'm not going to wait and go to a training on it at a conference. I'm going to go figure it out on my own. And when I go to a conference, and I'm extremely introverted, but when I go to a conference, I have a limited bandwidth for how much I can people, right? And how much I can be around. And when I am around those superficial conversations, my bandwidth drains like I don't know what. And when I am in conversations with people that are deep and really meaningful, and getting to know somebody and just sharing something amazing, I get recharged. So I totally understand you. And can I share a tip maybe that might be helpful?
You're not allowed. Of course. Yeah.
So so when you are, and I know I brought up age a couple of times. I used to hate that when I was a kid. Well, when I was younger, where people would say, "Oh, you're so young," and I don't mean it in that way. What I mean is that through our time here on Earth, we have more and more experiences, and we adapt, and we are able to decipher things quicker. And something that for me has taken many, many, many years, and actively thinking about, to better my interactions and make me, again, it's all about love and joy. And if I feel good, it's good. We're on point. Success is there. If I don't, then there's something off. I could suggest that if you're in an environment and there's just a lot of small talk, and you recognize quickly that this is not the group for you, leave. Just walk away. They probably won't even notice. And if they do, just, say, and, just give them a signal like, I'll be back, or whatever. Just not even I'll be back, but just gotta go.
Bye.
Yeah. Without interrupting their flow while they're talking about Game of Thrones or whatever pop culture stuff they're discussing. But if you're in a group and there's a lot of superficial conversation, but there's somebody you really are interested in, don't be afraid to just kind of, if it's like a kind of a group standing around, don't be afraid to just say, can I talk to you for a second? Or, just give them a tap on the shoulder and say, hey, I had a question for you. And then start engaging with that person, that individual, because unless you're surrounded by all the best individuals, you're not going to have depth generally. You're not going to have deep conversations. But people like you and me that love that depth, we are all over, and we are standing back often from those superficial conversations. So we may seem socially awkward. We may seem like we're just disinterested, maybe like we're a snob, like we're too good for people. That's a lot of what I've gotten over the year. And it's not that I think any of those things. It's that I have nothing to add to this conversation. There's absolutely nothing I can add. And I am so not interested in this conversation. And I'm just standing here to be polite. And I think that a lot of us do that. And that can be perceived as whatever it's perceived as. Who cares? Because they're not the people that you really want to engage with anyhow. And I think being able to just kind of be more real and cut through the BS quicker and let people know, hey, you know what? It was so nice meeting you. I had a blast with you. Take care. And just not re-engaging them. And, and something I've fallen into since I started in this internet space, because I was a ghost on the computer and the internet before. When I was a correctional officer and a foster parent, you weren't going to find me. I wasn't coming out and being public. It's been a very challenging journey to get even on camera, let alone to today, again, May 9th, 2019, to be talking about something that is very personal and could hurt a lot of people's feelings knowing it. And that's not my intention. I'm just over the bullshit. And I think the more we can get over the bullshit, the faster we can get over the bullshit, the better we're going to be. And
I totally agree.
If you believe that depth of conversation, depth of the human that you're dealing with is the most important thing for you, or one of those important things, then seek that out and don't waste your time and energy with anybody that doesn't doesn't align with that.
Yeah, I definitely find myself almost like recusing myself from the situation if it's not a situation that I want to be a part of. That's actually happened with an interview before, where we were having a good conversation, and we were talking about something, and then it just took a really sour turn, and not sour in the point of like disagreement or something where like it was it was a situation where I felt like they were just coming from a really negative space, and I was like, I'm not going to subject my audience to that. Like, who do you think you are? Like, I'm not going to let you project that on the people that I care about, the people that are supporting the show. Like, that is bullshit. And there is 0% chance that is going to fly on the show, because like I work too hard to make sure that you beautiful listeners and watchers out there get the very best, because I believe that you deserve that. And so, yeah, so I cut it off, and I'll tell you another story. Before an interview even started one time, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to start a whole thing, but this gentleman and I were speaking before an interview, and in the background there was some activity going on that was just a little sketchy. I was like, all right, I mean, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And then right before we started, like 30 seconds before I hit go, I saw something that like way crossed the line. And I actually stopped mid-sentence. Actually, I stopped him mid-sentence, and I was like, I actually just saw something in the background there that I'm just very not okay with, and we're not going to be able to do this interview today. Sorry about that. I hope you have a nice day and have a good one. Peace. And like ended it. And I mean, that was the first time that had ever happened to me. And I was like, what's even going on there? So that was a situation where I was like, that way crosses the line. On air, this is live. This is unscripted, unedited.
We're talking right now, and God knows how many people are watching.
Exactly. So it's like anything can happen. So yeah, no, I agree that if it's not the situation you want to be in, just remove yourself from that situation. So one more question for you.
Okay.
And then I want to wrap it up here pretty soon. But what question should I be asking you, specifically me, asking specifically you, that I just wouldn't think to ask?
About anything, you mean?
Yeah, anything.
Okay. So what's coming to me right now, what I actually would love to share, I would love for you to ask me, with your values around depth that are similar to mine, and having interviewed well over 400 successful entrepreneurs on your show and summit and different projects, how do you ensure that the people you're interviewing and that you're sharing with your audience are aligned with your values and my values?
That's a good one.
Thanks.
And I would actually really appreciate if you answered that.
I'd love to. So this is the first time I'm talking about this too. I mean, publicly, I have my people I talk with, but something that I've been challenged by for the last couple of years is that, I have gotten a lot of earned media. A lot of people know my show and want to be on my show, which is a blessing, right? I'm very fortunate and I appreciate that. And you may be able to relate to this in a large way. Something that drives me nuts, and actually why I started representing others and why I started teaching about, first off, why I started writing about and then teaching about and then actually doing for others. It all boils down to authenticity and caring for the other humans that you're interacting with. What I found was early on, I never needed guests. I never needed guests as a podcaster. I know people are like, oh my gosh, you always need guests. And it's like, I just don't. It's probably because I care about the depth. I know amazing people and I get introduced to more amazing people through those people. And, I've already interviewed, when I started, I had already interviewed 31 experts for the summit. And I already had relationships, et cetera. Right. So I've never been in the situation where I've needed interviewees ever. However, I've been conflicted many times about, what about people who want to be on my show? Do they actually want to be on my show or do they want to be on shows? And so it's very important to me, and this is what I teach my clients as well. Don't go on shows just to go on shows for your own interest. It has to be with a clear picture. Why do you want to be on that show? And why should the host want you on that show, right? Like there's got to be connections. There's got to be some value in it for the host, the audience, and yourself. And if you're wanting to go out on shows, you already know the value for yourself is to getting on the shows, right? That's a done deal. We don't have to go into depth with that. But why do you want to be on a show with a particular audience, with a particular host? That's where people don't do their digging and they don't spend the time that they need to spend in order to have authentic, deep relationships that can then flourish. They may not, but they may, right? Those conversations, those connections that you get with another human being, and then them introducing you to other human beings who already know, like, and respect them. They trust them, right? So I'm here with you and you have your audience, Ben, and we're talking about all kinds of stuff that doesn't normally come up on interviews I do, although I'm being way more open now just about life in general and not sticking just to the tactic stuff. I can do the tactic stuff all day, but I want people to know who I am. I want people to know me because that way they can say, oh, this is why I need to work with Nicole. This is why I need to interview Nicole. This is why, and probably after this, they're going to be like, I don't need to interview Nicole. She just keeps babbling on. But for some people, that's a benefit. But we want to go on shows for our stuff. That's fine. But coming on your show, you're still leading this. And you demonstrated from the first connection and all the way through the process leading up to now that I needed to have at least an hour to do video with you. I needed to put that amount of time into my calendar. And I just want to make sure you're still with me because it looks frozen. So I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. And it says live. So I might still be live. So I'm going to give it just a moment and see if Ben pops back if I am live. And thank you for anybody who's watching. And if not, I don't even have my phone on me to check. If not, if he doesn't come back in a moment or so, I am going to wrap this up and say thank you. Oh, there he comes.
Nicole, are you there?
Hi, I am. I think we're still live.
All right. Well, just a quick update. I'm now on my phone. I don't know if y'all can see me, but all of the internet went off at my home office, and so let's finish this on up. The show must go on.
We're rolling with the punches, and Nicole is going to zip through this. So the bottom line is, as a podcaster, what I need to do, and this might be of value to you, but what I know I need to do is to express to people now, and I've gone through lots of different iterations of testing and seeing like, how can I get an amazing guest on that I may not know yet, who's a perfect fit? And I've done, questions and system and all that stuff. But what I need to do now is for me, I'm going to make a video and I am going to let people know that I so appreciate their interest in coming on the show and that I no longer take cold pitches and I bring people on the show who I already have relationships with. And if they feel like they want to be on my show and that they would love to have a relationship with me, then please, by all means, reach out. Let's figure out a way of doing that. But they should be able to figure it out. If you don't know how to get somebody's attention, right, and build an authentic relationship, you're not my person. So if I do a project and it's very specific and I'm searching for certain guests for certain things, that's another story. But still, I'm searching. So I will find the people I want. When people come cold as a potential guest, it's all about them and what they want. And so my recommendation would be, as soon as possible, to really set your expectations on who the person is, not what they do, but who they are, that you feel amazing sharing about them with your people who trust you so much.
Well, I think that's great advice. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And, I do want to say that despite the weather and the craziness that just happened, which this is the first time in Project Egg history that's ever happened. So thanks for being a part of that. But I also really do want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing everything that you have. It's truly been an honor to speak with you and a pleasure to share this time with you. So thank you very much, Nicole.
Thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege for me as well. I appreciate you.
And to everybody who's listening and watching, I hope you've enjoyed this turbulent episode. Watch out for the weather if you're in New Orleans, because it's getting crazy around here.
It's getting. Can you hear this? Yeah, I don't know if you can hear this. That's great. This mic, I love this mic. But I've got what is it called? Where you have a window in your ceiling.
Oh, the skylight thing?
Yes, thank you. I'm at a loss. So I've got a skylight right here and it's like pounding down. I can barely hear you because I hear the rain. So in Ontario too, be safe if you're dealing with the weather.
Well, thank you very much again, Nicole. And thank you to everybody who's watching, listening. I love y'all very, very much. And I will see you on the next episode.